We're counting down 11 British cheeses every shopper needs to know about, 9 you'll want to avoid at all costs, and 2 that actually prove British cheese can still be world-class. From rubbery slices packed with additives to bland blocks suffering from excessive salt and cheap shortcuts, this ranking exposes how supermarket classics stray from real quality. But among these, a few traditional gems still stand out for their pure flavour and authentic craft. Which cheese lands at the very bottom, and which deserve a spot on your table? Let's begin with number 11. Co-op processed cheese. Singles set the bar low for supermarket cheese. The front label even says processed cheese singles. Flip the pack, and the ingredient list reads like a science project. Cheese, water, milk proteins, emulsifying salts, colour, preservative. That is a clear warning sign for anyone who wants real cheese. In a melt test, these slices do not ooze or bubble like proper cheddar. Instead, they flatten into a glossy, rubbery sheet, sometimes forming shiny blobs that refuse to blend. The texture is more plastic than dairy, and the flavour is flat, salty, and unmistakably artificial. High salt content and a cocktail of additives replace any hint of natural maturity or complexity. If you spot processed cheese and emulsifying salts on the label, you are not getting the real thing. Just an ultra-processed imitation that fails in both taste and cooking. Morrison Savers cheese is about as cheap as it gets for a supermarket hard cheese block. That rock-bottom price comes with a clear trade-off. Slice into it, and the texture tells the story. Instead of a smooth, cohesive wedge, the block tends to break apart into dry, brittle shards. Press your thumb and it snaps rather than bends, leaving a pile of crumbles instead of a clean slice. This is not the deliberate, crumbly finish you find in a well-aged farmhouse cheddar. It is a side effect of cost-cutting in both ingredients and aging time. The cohesion is just not there, making it a struggle to grate or melt evenly. For anyone hoping to stretch their budget, it fills a sandwich, but do not expect the creamy texture or satisfying bite of a proper cheddar. With Savers cheese, low price comes at the expense of basic texture and eating experience. Sainsbury's Basics hard cheese stands out for all the wrong reasons. Slice into the block and the problem is obvious. Rather than a smooth, even surface, you get a cross-section riddled with grainy, sand-like specks. Run a knife through it, and the blade drags, leaving behind a trail of tiny crumbles that refuse to hold together. Take a bite and the mouthfeel is unmistakable. Grainy and almost sandy, with none of the creamy or crumbly richness found in a well-made cheddar. Even a basic shred test reveals the issue. Rather than forming long, pliable strands, the cheese breaks apart into coarse, uneven fragments. Try melting it on toast or in a sauce, and the texture does not improve. Instead of a smooth, cohesive melt, the cheese clumps and separates, leaving behind a patchy, unappetizing finish. For anyone who values texture, this is a clear warning sign. Graininess in a cheese block almost always means something went wrong during production, and it is a red flag that is easy to spot before you even taste it. Asda Smart Price cheese is one of the cheapest blocks you will find on the shelf, but the savings come with a clear catch. Cut a slice, and the first thing that stands out is not the texture, it is the taste. There is a metallic note that lingers on the tongue, a sharp reminder that bargain cheese often means shortcuts in production. Taster panels have described it as having a tinny, almost artificial finish, masking any hint of real cheddar character. The ingredient list usually sticks to the basics: milk, salt, starter, and rennet, but the rapid, large-scale processing needed to hit such a low price can leave the flavour flat and strange. At under half the price of branded cheddar, it fills a sandwich, but the eating experience is more about cost than enjoyment. For those shopping on a budget, that is understandable, but the metallic aftertaste is hard to ignore. Tesco British processed cheese slices spell trouble right on the label. The ingredients list is not shy. Cheese, water, emulsifying salts, starch, and a generous helping of rapeseed oil. That vegetable oil is the giveaway. Instead of relying on the natural fat from milk, Tesco slices replace a chunk of it with cheaper oil, a classic shortcut in ultra-processed cheese. The result shows itself the moment these slices hit a hot pan. Instead of melting smoothly, the surface turns glossy and slick, with beads of oil pooling around the edges. This is not the gentle ooze of real cheddar. It is a greasy melt that leaves a film on your fingers and a puddle in the pan. The science is simple. When non-dairy oils are forced into a cheese emulsion, they cannot hold together under heat. The oil breaks free, and what is left behind is a limp, oily sheet with little real flavor. A quick look at the label, spotting vegetable oil and emulsifying salts, tells you everything you need to know. This is a cheese engineered for price, not for taste or cooking performance. Seriously. Strong Cheddar's basic line wears its name like a badge of honor, but the reality is less impressive. Take a close look at the packaging, and you will spot a suspiciously vague ingredient called flavoring. That is not a typo, and it is not there for tradition. It is a shortcut. Instead of letting time develop genuine sharpness, the recipe leans on added flavor compounds to simulate maturity in a matter of weeks rather than months. The result is a cheese that shouts seriously strong on the label, but tastes like a one-note blast with little nuance. Snap a slice and you will notice it does not break along gentle, crumbly lines like a well-aged cheddar. Instead, it snaps with a brittle, almost plasticky edge, leaving shards rather than proper chunks. Tasting panels often describe the flavor as harsh and abrupt, sharpness dialed up without the mellowing complexity that comes from slow aging. It is engineered intensity, not real depth. For those chasing a genuine mature cheddar experience, the words flavoring and seriously strong together should raise an eyebrow. The difference is obvious from the first bite. Davidstow is a name that carries weight in the world of British cheddar, but their budget block tells a different story. Flip the pack and the nutrition panel stands out. Salt registers at around 1.9 grams per 100 grams, noticeably higher than the 1.7 grams you will find in many standard supermarket cheddars. That extra sodium is not just a number on a label, it is the first thing you notice on the tongue. Take a bite and the flavor hits hard, sharp, almost aggressive saltiness that drowns out any subtle dairy notes. The salt burn lingers, leaving a dryness rather than a creamy finish. Tasters often describe it as overwhelming, with the salt masking what little mature cheddar character the cheese has to offer. Texture does not save it either. Some blocks feel firm and sliceable, while others crumble in odd places, making it a gamble every time you cut. This is not the balanced, complex profile you would hope for in a mature cheddar. Instead, it is a shortcut using sodium to fake depth where proper aging and careful crafting are missing. For anyone watching their salt intake or simply looking for rich, rounded flavor, Davidstow's budget block is a clear case where the numbers and the taste do not add up. Pilgrim's Choice. Lighter sits on the shelf with a promise. All the cheddar taste, but with 30% less fat than their standard block. That sounds appealing until you check the label and see what is missing. Fat is not just about calories, it is the backbone of cheddar's flavor and aroma. In traditional cheddar, fat molecules trap and release the compounds that give the cheese its signature tang and depth. When you cut that fat, you are not just trimming richness, you are stripping away the main carrier of taste. To keep the texture from turning into a dry, crumbly mess, manufacturers add stabilizers and tweak the moisture balance. The result is a block that bends and springs back, almost elastic. Run a simple bend test and you will notice the slice folds in half without snapping, a far cry from the gentle break of a proper cheddar. On the tongue, the experience is just as telling. The flavor comes across as muted and faintly acidic, with little of the savory punch you expect from a mature cheese. The aroma is shy, and the aftertaste fades quickly, leaving you searching for more. Compare the nutrition panels side by side and the difference is clear. Pilgrim's Choice. Lighter clocks in with around 16 grams of fat per 100 grams, while a full-fat cheddar sits closer to 34 grams. That gap shows up in every bite. For anyone hoping to cut calories, this cheese will fill a sandwich, but do not expect the richness or complexity of real cheddar. When it comes to flavor, fat is the secret ingredient you cannot fake. Cathedral City has built its reputation on being the nation's cheddar of choice, but their processed sliced line tells a very different story. The packaging still carries the familiar branding, yet a quick scan of the ingredients reveals a long list of extras: modified starch, emulsifying salts like E339 and E452, milk proteins, and even added flavoring. These are not just minor tweaks, they fundamentally change the cheese. Instead of the crumbly, creamy bite you would expect from a proper cheddar, Cathedral City sliced bends like a rubber band. Try the classic bend test. The slice folds in half without breaking, then it springs back, leaving no trace of the natural curd structure found in a block of traditional cheddar. The reason is simple. Emulsifying salts break down the casein in the cheese, allowing fat and water to blend into a single, uniform mass. Starches and milk proteins bulk out the slice, keeping it soft and pliable even after weeks in the fridge. But all that processing comes at a cost. The texture is bouncy and elastic, with none of the gentle crumble or the satisfying snap of a well-aged cheddar. In a melt test, the difference is even clearer. Instead of bubbling and forming rich golden pockets, the slice collapses into a glossy, featureless sheet that clings to the bread like plastic wrap. There is no aroma, no ooze, just a uniform orange layer that tastes faintly of salt and dairy but lacks any real depth or tang. For a brand that trades on its cheddar heritage, this processed line feels like a betrayal. The block and the slice may share a label, but they could not be further apart in terms of ingredients or eating experience. The lesson is clear. Not all sub-brands are created equal, and a trusted name on the pack does not guarantee the quality inside. For anyone seeking the real character of British cheddar, this is one to leave on the shelf. Cornish Yarg stands apart from the processed crowd, both in looks and in taste. Each wheel begins as a simple, fresh cow's milk cheese, but what makes it instantly recognizable is the hand wrapping in nettle leaves. This is not just for show. The nettles, gathered and prepared by hand, are carefully pressed onto the surface of the young cheese before it is left to mature. Over weeks, the leaves form a delicate, edible rind, speckled with natural white mold. Sliced through the wheel, and the cross-section tells its own story. A thin, silvery green outer layer, creamy and yielding just beneath the rind, then a crisp lactic white core that breaks cleanly under gentle pressure. The ingredient list reads like a throwback to another era. Milk, salt, starter cultures, rennet, and nettles. Nothing else. No emulsifiers, no oils, no added starch. The result is a cheese with a clean, lemony brightness that lifts off the tongue. Near the rind, the paste softens and takes on subtle, earthy notes from the nettles, while the center stays fresh and lactic, almost yogurt-like. Tasting panels often describe Yarg as having a gentle tang and a finish that is both grassy and refreshing, with just a hint of mushroom from the natural mold. Making Cornish Yarg is a slow, hands-on process. Each cheese is wrapped individually, then aged for about 4 to 5 weeks, allowing the nettles to infuse their character and the rind to develop its signature bloom. The texture changes as you eat from the outside in, creamy and yielding at the edge, firmer and more crumbly at the core. Unlike the uniform rubbery slices found in processed packs, Yarg offers a gradient of textures and flavors in every wedge. While it is not the best choice for melting on toast or burgers, Yarg is at its best sliced thick, served with fresh bread or fruit, where its delicate flavors and natural textures can really shine. Its craftsmanship and purity put it in a different league from the processed cheeses that dominate supermarket shelves. Cornish Yarg earns its spot as a British cheese worth seeking out, proof that tradition and simplicity can deliver a payoff no additive can match. Quicke's mature cheddar stands in a different league from the industrial blocks and ultra-processed slices that fill supermarket shelves. This is cheddar as it was meant to be, handmade on a Devon estate where the Quickie family has farmed for generations. The milk comes from their own grass-fed cows, and every wheel starts with just 4 ingredients: milk, salt, starter cultures, and rennet. No emulsifiers, no added oils, no shortcuts. The real magic happens in the aging stores. Instead of plastic wrap or vacuum packs, Quicke's cheddars are pressed into cloth-bound truckles, then left to mature for anywhere from 12 to 24 months. That cloth lets the cheese breathe, slowly losing moisture and building depth as the months tick by. Inside, the texture transforms. The paste goes from firm to crumbly, and if you slice into an older wheel, you will spot tiny white crystals, calcium lactate, nestled in the body of the cheese. Those crystals are a hallmark of slow aging and careful craft, adding a gentle crunch and a burst of savory flavor. Taste is where Quickies truly delivers. Each bite carries a layered profile, nutty and grassy at first, then rounded with a creamy, buttery finish. The salt is present but balanced, never overwhelming. There is a subtle tang from the cultures, and the complexity lingers long after the cheese is gone. This is not a one-note blast of sharpness or a salty punch. It is a slow build of flavor that only time and skill can create. Put Quicks to the melt-air and the difference is clear. Shred a wedge onto hot toast or a burger and the cheese bubbles and browns, forming golden pockets and a creamy, rich layer that stretches but never turns rubbery. The melt is smooth and indulgent, with none of the oily puddles or plasticky sheets seen in processed slices. That is the payoff for using real milk fat and traditional methods, flavor and texture that hold up in cooking, as well as on a cheese board. Quickies mature cheddar is not just a cheese, it is the answer to what is missing from the rest of the list. Ingredient purity, slow cloth-bound aging, and a commitment to flavor over convenience put it at the top. For anyone tired of rubbery slices and bland budget blocks, this is the cheddar that rewards every extra penny and every extra month of patience. It is proof that British cheese can still deliver the full spectrum of taste, texture, and satisfaction when tradition is allowed to do its work. Across all 11 entries, one pattern stands out. When cheese-making shortcuts multiply, quality and authenticity vanish. In the UK today, convenience often trumps craftsmanship, leaving shoppers with bland, over-processed imitations. Yet true British cheese still exists, crafted by hands, not machines. What we choose at the counter shapes the future of food. Choose tradition, and you keep real flavor alive. For more food deep dives, subscribe and join the conversation below.